Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about the only right way to prepare, which really, some of you are probably surprised at the title if you've been following me for a while, is that I always say everybody's going to have their own way of doing things and there's not one right way for everyone. But when it comes to preparedness, if you want to boil it down to just one thing, the only right way is to just do it. Period. It doesn't matter how you go about it. It doesn't matter what it is you're storing up. What matters is that you're doing something. So the wrong way to prepare then is to not do anything at all. So let me just cover a few points. This is supposed to be an encouraging video for anyone who's either just getting started in preparedness or is thinking of getting into preparedness and maybe is feeling overwhelmed. Don't feel overwhelmed because every little bit is better than nothing. So the number one point in this is just doing what you can with what's available to you and what you're able to manage. So let's just say, you know, money's really tight and you're just barely making it from paycheck to paycheck. And maybe you might have a couple dollars left over. Then that couple of dollars that goes into your food storage or into some sort of preparedness, or get saved up a little bit at a time for some kind of bigger item that you're either watching for secondhand or you want to buy brand new, be it a grain mill or some kind of cook source or rocket stove, or even just the materials to build a rocket stove so you have some other way to cook your food in the case of a power outage, then that's something. Now remember, no matter who any of us are, we all had to start somewhere. Unless we were born and raised in this lifestyle and it was just a part of who we were all the way through, then we've all had to start somewhere. So it can be very overwhelming when we look around and we see channels like Rain Country who seem like they have everything. And you know what? I actually never thought there would come a day that we would get to the point we're at now. But does that mean that we've stopped? No. But the surprising thing is that we got to a point that I always dreamed of being that never thought we could actually achieve on such a limited budget. But it was by learning through scrimping and saving and cutting back on this item over here so we could put a little bit more into that item, and then getting better at bulk buying, which thankfully, before we really got serious about preparedness, I was already into bulk buying certain things that we used a lot of, such as flours and sugars, herbs and so on, until of course I started growing on my own, most of my own herbs, and so now I don't have to bulk buy any of that stuff. And so that's my second point, is not allowing what you see other people do or invest in for their preparedness make you feel that you're less than for where you are now or where you're starting. Because remember, those same people all started somewhere, and they didn't just overnight have solar setups and rocket stoves and wood stoves and 2 or 3 years worth of food storage. No, these were things that were built upon a little bit at a time. And the third main point of this when it comes to the right way to prepare is to always practice. So that means, for example, we don't drink milk. A lot of people assume that we drink milk because it's important for me to stock up on dairies, like dairy powders. It's because I do a lot of cooking and baking with milk, and that's why the dairy powders are really important. That wasn't actually one of the first things, though, I started stocking up on. That was something that came actually a little bit later in the game. But once I got more serious into putting up the different types of powders, peanut butter powder, milk powder, butter powder, all these different things, I didn't just put them up for when an emergency happens. I started implementing them right away so that I could learn how to use them so that I would have the practice needed, and actually find that in a lot of things I really prefer using the different dairy powders. But the same thing goes with any other food storage items, whether it be things that you canned, freeze-dried, dehydrated yourself, or you bought already canned, freeze-dried, or dehydrated. It doesn't matter which. You still have to practice with these things because you don't want to keep stocking up on something that if you find out, gosh, I don't really have a use for this, I don't like the flavor of it. For me, there's a lot of freeze-dried vegetables I really don't like, but most freeze-dried fruits I do. But even then, I only use them in certain things. You just got to find the different ways you can learn it. You got to practice, because you don't want to be stuck in a difficult situation and then here you are having to depend on this food storage or this cook source that you've never practiced on, or this energy source that you've never practiced with. Whatever it is, you don't want to be stuck having to learn when times are the toughest. You want to practice now. Besides, by utilizing some of that stuff now, especially any kind of off-grid cooking source where, like a rocket stove, for example, I have videos from a couple years ago where I was doing a lot of cooking on our rocket stove out on the back deck. And the thing that's great about rocket stoves, whether you buy one or build one yourself, is that you can use it takes very little to keep it going. So a lot of your garden waste can be used in that rocket stove, or things like tree cones, whether it be from pine or otherwise. And I've used like the old dried stalks from my marshmallow. And my marshmallow, it grows and then it dies back in the fall, and then the stalks turn really dry. That makes really good tinder for using in a rocket stove. So that's a really cheap way to go, especially if you build the rocket stove yourself out of just some old patio blocks. But anyway, you still have to practice. You have to practice using those things, and I've done that. I know how to use a rocket stove as a result, and did, like I said, quite a few videos on that. And then I just want to touch yet again, it doesn't matter how a person chooses to preserve their food is not going to be the right way for everyone. And nobody should tell you otherwise. Some people have bought freeze dryers and absolutely love them and have been putting up most of their food that way. Other people, like myself, have looked into the cost and the fact that I really don't like all freeze dried foods and realized that was not the best choice for us. If you decide to buy a dehydrator, it doesn't matter what brand you get, as long as you get one that works and you can afford to buy it. Even if it's a $3 Nesco that you picked up at a garage sale like I've done. I've picked up actually 2 different Nesco dehydrators at garage sales. One for $3, one for $5. Both of them were like new. In fact, one I don't think got used at all, and the other one looked like it had been used maybe one time. It doesn't matter if you have a big expensive all-American canner or a lesser expensive one, especially one that you picked up secondhand. That doesn't matter. As long as it works, that is what matters. As long as that's what you want to do, and that's the way you want to preserve your food, and that's the way that's going to suit your needs and your family needs, that is what matters. It doesn't matter what anyone else does. And having some kind of expensive fancy equipment doesn't make somebody a better food preserver than somebody else. So remember, you can dehydrate without electricity by simply laying stuff out on a rack and just letting it dry naturally. And I have a video on that, just some different ways to help save you money that you can look into for making your own dehydrator. And I also have one comparing different dehydrators that I'll link to down below. And the other thing that doesn't matter, according to what you need, is whether or not what you're putting up is homegrown or store-bought, organic or conventionally grown. For some of us, yes, trying to get as organic and natural and homegrown as we can is important. When you're first getting started, just like when we were first getting started, it was going to the Costco and buying cases of canned vegetables and putting those up, because having some food, be it organic or not, is more important than having none. So remember, what matters most is that you have something and that you're doing something, not that you're doing it like me or anyone else. All right, well, really, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. It was just an encouragement for those especially getting started, and don't let what other people do make you feel that you're less than, or make you feel why bother. Just whatever you do is something, and that matters. And also keep in mind, I'll be linking to a few videos down below that I think will be helpful. So just make sure at the end of this video that you click on either show more right down here below my channel name, or that little gray arrow over here on this side if you're on a smart device, so you can open up the description box to see all the links I'll be putting in there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.